Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. Today we're going to keep on reading from al-Ajwoba al-Jaliya fil al-Ahkam al-Hanbaliya, or the clear answer to the Hanbali Rulings by al-Sheikh Musa bin Issa al-Qaddoomi rahimahullah. And today we're going to be talking about the Fardh and Wajib and Sunna acts of al-Wudhu. So let's begin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma alimtana. Innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma anfa'na bima alimtana wa alimna bima yanfa'una wa zidna ilman ya Rabbil Alameen. قال المؤلف رحمه الله ونفى الله به وبعلومه وعلوم مشايخنا في الدارين آمين. So we're going to be starting today discussing the rulings of wudu, and as usual we're reading the translation by Sheikh Khalid Shah, and we are at number 12, or what is page 27 of his book. And he says, how many Fardh actions, and in parentheses fara'id or obligatory actions, are there in wudu, and what are they? So my first piece of advice, just try to remember these three numbers: 6, 1, and 8. As we go through the dars, you'll understand why, but it's going to help you inshallah to memorize what we're studying now. And then we can also look at the definition of al-wudu. So we'll refer to what Sheikh al-Buhuti, al-Imam al-Buhuti mentions in Sharh al-Muntaha, where he says al-wudu, and that is with a dhamma or a short u sound on the waw or the w sound, because al-wudu with the a sound means water. Al-wudu means this type of purification that one performs for the minor impurity. So al-Imam al-Buhuti, he defines al-wudu as ista'malu ma'in tuhurin mubahin, using pure and permissible water fil ada'i al-arba'ati, on the four limbs, al-wajhi, al-yadaini, al-ra'si, al-rajalaini, the face, the two hands, the head, and the 2 feet, ala sifatin makhsusatin, according to a particular formula. So this is the general definition of al-wudu. As we said here in this book by Sheikh Musa al-Qaddoomi, he's starting with the obligatory actions. In the book that this is a summary of, I hope by now you've all memorized this, but this is a summary of Dalil al-Talib by al-Imam Mar'i al-Karmi. He starts with the Wajib before the Fardh, and one can debate which order is superior, but I just want to highlight in Ad-Dalil, he does start with the Wajib, and I think that's because in this case of al-wudu, the Wajib precedes the Fardh act. Next, if we want to quickly define what it means, the Fardh, or the plural, which is furud, and the plural can also be fara'id. This, according to Imam al-Buhuti, which he mentions in Sharh al-Muntaha, ما يترتب الثواب على فعله والإقاب على تركه. So that which brings about reward by performing it, and punishment by leaving it or abandoning it. And Shaykhuna, our Shaykh Mustafa Al-Yan, he said that the fara'id or furud in this context has the same meaning as al-arkan. So you will see when we get particularly to the fiqh of salah or prayer, the fard is called arkan. Sheikh Musa, he said, or Sheikh Mustafa, he clarified that their absence, meaning the absence of the fard acts, is never excused. If left out intentionally or left out of forgetfulness or out of ignorance, the wudhu is batil or invalid. Now, this is opposed to the wajib, which in the context of al-wudhu is excused when left out of forgetfulness or out of ignorance. So this is, please try to memorize these two especially. And then Shaykhuna, he clarified there's no obligation in doing the sunnah or sunan, which is the plural of sunnah, but they are heavily emphasized. And on just a quick side note, our Shaykh Mustafa, he did mention, to emphasize the importance of these sunnah acts, that, for example, the one who, we can say, regularly abandons the sunnah prayer, his witness is not accepted for the qadi. So these sunnah acts, although as I said, there's no obligation to do them, they are heavily emphasized, and not performing them may have implications in the dunya and the akhirah, and Allah knows best. Okay, now that we quickly have explained the definition of al-wudhu and the definition of a fard act, let's go back to the text. So the question was, how many fard actions are there in wudhu, and what are they? And the author replies, there are 6 fard actions in wudhu, and they are, and if you remember, I was telling you to memorize 618. So here we're going to talk about the 6, meaning the 6 fard actions of al-wudhu. So the first of the 6, washing the face, which includes rinsing the mouth and nose. If we refer to what it says in nail, which is the explanation of Dalil al-Talib, and sorry, the full name is Nail al-Marib, which is the most famous explanation of Dalil al-Talib. They use the wording there of it includes al-madmada and al-istinshaq. So what the author has said here is kind of maybe a clearer way of explaining that, but basically the madmada is the rinsing of the mouth, and the istinshaq is the rinsing of the nose. So here the author has just instead referred directly to the mouth and nose. And as a maybe good point here, Shaykhuna Dr. Mustafa, he mentioned here that yes, the mouth and the nose are considered to be part of the face. And this is from the mufradat of the madhab. And I hope you've also at this point memorized the word mufradat, but these are the positions that are, we can say, the lone position of the Hanbali madhab, or any madhab, as opposed to the other 3 of the 4 madhab. And although this might sound strange, the mouth being part of the face or the nose, the evidence for that is that, if you're fasting and you put something in your mouth or your nose, it doesn't break your sawm or your fasting. And maybe on just another quick side note, the fasting isn't only abstaining from food and drink, but in fact the definition that you should know of what it means to be so-called fasting, which maybe isn't the best word to translate it as, but during the state of Sawm or fasting, you can't put anything into your body cavity. This is the actual definition according to the Sharia. So the fact that you can put things in your nose and mouth, that is a good evidence that the nose and mouth are somehow part of the exterior of the body and not the cavity of the body, and Allah knows best. And just to also quickly define the face, I mean, we know obviously the general meaning of face, but here, to be more specific, it extends from the ear to the ear, and from the hairline to the chin. And when we say hairline, we mean the place that one would normally have hair. So, in case that one was going bald, or was already bald, or had some other condition where they didn't have hair growing, we would just refer to where hair normally grows, and this is the extent of the face, and Allah knows best. And number 2, washing both hands up to and including the elbow. The elbow is a protruding bone or joint that connects the upper arm and forearm. So the author here, he's already explained the extent of the hand. And yes, when we say hand here, at least in Arabic, they do use this word yad. And the word yad or hand, it can mean what we would call hand in English, and it can also mean more generally the whole, I guess we would call it like forearm. So as the author said, from the hand all the way up and including the elbow. Then the author goes on to say, number 3, wipe the outside of the entire head, which also includes both ears and the area above and around the top of the ear, in quotations, where hair does not grow. So I quite like that the author here, he's mentioned something, mashallah, very beneficial that you don't see in a lot of the earlier books, but he mentions about this skin that's, he says, around the top of the ear, so kind of like between the ear and the hair. Maybe you can also think about it like if you wear glasses, it's kind of like where the glasses would sit, above your ear, that area. And Al-Buhuti, he also discusses this in Sharh al-Muntaha, where the evidence for this is the ayah in the Quran from Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 6, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. And this preposition, the letter ba, they say this is the ba of al-ilsaq, which is some type of carries the meaning of a kind of complete inclusion of something as opposed to a partial inclusion of something. And our Shaykh, Dr. Mustafa, hafadhahullah, he did clarify that this is also from the mufradat of the madhab. And one can easily achieve this just by putting the two hands together and wiping from front to back and then back again. And this will be discussed in more detail during the description of the wudhu. But this is one of the more, we can say, restrictive positions on the issue of the other madhab, and Allah knows best. We should also quickly mention the difference between wiping and washing. So washing means that when you're doing it, there is some type of a like running water, as in the water should be running over your body, whatever part that you're washing. So that running water kind of like remains, if we can say, like active, meaning that wherever that running water is touching, it's purifying until it separates from the body part that's being washed. Whereas the wiping would just be having a wet hand and then moving it over the part of the body that's being wiped. And finally, on the inclusion of the ears as part of the head, there is a hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, al-udhanani min ar-ras, or the two ears are a part of the head, and Allah knows best. The author goes on to explain number 4, and washing both feet up to and including the ankles. The ankles are the two bones protruding at the bottom of the shin, or we can say the side, the bottom and the side. And I think that one is clear as the author has just explained it. Then the author goes on with number 5, maintain the order from one limb to another. So the order that we've mentioned here, you have to maintain it, and if you didn't maintain it, then the wudhu would be invalid. So for example, if you started with your feet before your face, that would be invalid. And it does mention in a nail, and I hope also you're starting to memorize this, nail al-marib, the famous sharh or explanation of Dalil al-Talib. It's mentioned in nail that doing the right before the left isn't included in the meaning of tartib, or doing things in order. It is something that's sunnah that we'll explain later. And Ibn Mundhir mentioned consensus on that issue, that it's not obligatory. And then the author goes on to say, the last one, number 6, to do so without long interruption, i.e. To not delay for a considerable time in the washing of a limb so that the previous limb dries. And I do have a comment on the translation here. So if you see page 28 where he has the Arabic number 6 at the top, he does say أن يجف ما قبله بزمن معتدل عفوا. So that word معتدل, it means like something like a normal time, but I mean what he has translated here by meaning is correct. I mean, this wording of so that the previous limb doesn't dry, it is used in other books like Zad al-Mustaqna and other books. So the meaning is correct, but I don't think the translation here is correct. And just to quickly mention that drying, as in like drying, with a towel or paper towel or whatever, is not disliked, unlike the Shafi'iyah. So that is an important distinction to make. Then the author goes on to say the next question, what is wajib in wudhu? And he replies, only tasmiyah, which means saying the Bismillah, is wajib. It's excused if it's left out forgetfully or in ignorance, but not so if it's left out intentionally. So the author has already given a definition of what it means as wajib, and I think we've explained that already once at the beginning. And we understand that it is wajib based on the hadith of Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا صلاة لمن لا وضوء له ولا وضوء لمن لم يذكر اسم الله عليه. So there is no prayer for the one who doesn't have wudhu, and there is no wudhu for the one who doesn't mention the name of Allah while doing it. And this is narrated by Imam Ahmed and Abu Dawood and Ibn Majah. And this also applies to all acts of purification that require the tasmiyah, and this is what is mentioned in An-Nail by quoting Al-Imam al-Balbani and also in other books. And what we can understand indirectly from this is that there are types of purification that do not require a tasmiyah, and this refers to removing najasa from items, whether it be your clothing or on the ground, and that will be explained later. Okay, now we go to the next question, question number 14. How many prerequisites does wudhu have? And I think we can start first quickly by mentioning the Arabic word, as he's translated here, prerequisite, which the singular would be shart and the plural would be shurut. And we can define the shart or shurut as something that prevents an act from being performed and necessitates its invalidity when the condition is not present, but does not necessitate an act to be performed if present. So these acts will precede the Wajib and Fardh acts, and we can also categorize these conditions into those that are wujub and siha. So things that wujub would be, or they might say wujuban, required for the act to be an obligation, or sihatan, something that would be required for the act to be valid, and maybe in some cases they could be both. Wallahu a'lam. So these are now the 8. Just if you remember the 618 that I mentioned, we had the 6 fard acts, the 1 wajib. Now we're in the 8 shurut. So number 1, ceasing of that which necessitates wudhu, such as urination, passing wind, menses or menstruation, and the like thereof. And in An-Nail they also mention the nifas or postpartum bleeding. Okay, number 2, the intention. And in Arabic this is the niyyah, and there's so much that can be said about the niyyah, so maybe we'll expand a little bit beyond what's here. So the idea that the niyyah is a condition comes from the hadith, enamel binniyat, so verily deeds are according to their intention. And in the Sharh al-Muntaha al-Buhuti, he says that for this intention one can intend irtifa al-hadath, or lifting the hadath, and this intention should be done shortly before performing the wajib act, in this case the tasmiyah or saying bismillah, and not long before it. If you have that kind of a long duration between making the intention and saying the bismillah, then that will not be valid. So if we quickly look maybe into Nail al-Marib, and the author of that book is al-Taghlibi, he says an-niyya huna, so intention here, fil wudu, in wudu, is qist raf al-hadath, or the intention to lift al-hadath bidhalika wudu, with that wudu, or qist istibaha ma yani fa'alin tajib lahu at-tahara, or by intending making something permissible, meaning the action of what requires wudu to be performed, such as كاستباحة صلاة واستباحة طواف واستباحة مس المصحف, such as making prayer permissible and tawaf permissible and touching a mushaf permissible. So if we look in Sharh al-Muntaha, al-Buhuti, I like how he explains it there, because he kind of describes it as two scenarios. So we've discussed what we can call scenario one, that you're either making intention to lift the hadith or to make a certain act permissible to perform. There is a second scenario that we can say applies to someone who has a hadith da'im, or a kind of a permanent state of hadith, not necessarily permanent forever, but he gives the example, at least if we look back at the Nail al-Marib, of al-Mustahada, or for example the woman who has a menstruation that has gone beyond the normal period of menstruation, or for example the person who has a problem with kind of a dripping urination, that the urine continues to drip and come out even after they've gone to the bathroom. So these would be cases of someone who has the hadith da'im, or kind of so-called permanent hadith, and in the case of this person, they wouldn't or they shouldn't intend raf' al-hadith, or lifting the hadith, but rather they should be intending the istibaha, or making the act permissible, and Allah knows best. And if we go back to Nail al-Marib, he does mention also several acts where it is sunnah to have tahara, which includes reciting the Quran. And pay attention, this is different than touching it. We said touching it, you do need the wudhu, but just to recite it, it's only sunnah or recommended. And making dhikr, making the adhan when sleeping, when angry, when having some kind of a prohibited speech, such as ghiba, or speaking behind someone's back, which includes even things that are true, julus bi masjid, sitting in a mosque, tadris ilm, studying sacred knowledge, eating, and also visiting the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then it's concluded, after mentioning all of these sunnah acts, that when one intends something for those, his hadath is also lifted. Another good benefit here is that there's a type of a wudu called tajdid al-masnoon, or just like the sunnah of renewing the wudu. So even if, for example, you've made the wudu for salat al-zuhr, and then salat al-asr the time has come, and you're still in the state of al-wudu, it is sunnah to so-called renew the wudu even if you don't have to. And so what he mentions here is that in the case where you do this sunnah renewing of the wudu, if you've forgotten that you have done hadith, that you've broken your wudu, but this will be conditioned that in the first prayer that you did have the wudu. So in the case that you didn't, then the renewing of the wudhu would not make up for any hadath that you've had and you forgot about. Likewise, any hadath that you had that you remember, doing the so-called sunnah, tajdeed or renewing of wudhu would not lift that hadath. So we'll mention just a few other things here quickly and try to conclude about the niyyah, but I think the niyyah is kind of important and it's good that we're looking at it here. So one cannot just intend, for example, like doing tahara or wudu or ghusl for the person who needs ghusl, so specifically the junub. As we said, one should intend either the lifting of the hadath or making a certain act permissible. And while we're on the subject of the niyyah for tahara, maybe we'll just quickly mention one or two points about the ghusl or the purification bath. That in the case that one is intending a sunnah ghusl, when he requires a wajib one or a wajib ghusl in place of a sunnah one, both are valid. Likewise, if one intends both in the single ghusl, which one can do. However, when intending a ghusl, when one isn't wajib, it can't be in place of al-wudu. Basically meaning if you're in the shower, for example, and you don't need to do al-ghusl, you only need al-wudu, you can't just do the ghusl. You should do the wudu or the ghusl and the wudu. But the ghusl alone won't suffice unless you have to have that ghusl. Okay, the author goes on, number 3 of the conditions or shurut to be Muslim: 4, to be of sound mind; 5, reaching the age of discretion, which is reaching 7 years of age. And anytime we talk about age in Sharia, we're talking about lunar years. These 3 are not always mentioned in all the books, but nonetheless, they are correct to have them here. And regarding having discernment, I mean, this is important because the one who has discernment, what we would call al-mumayyiz, they are able to have a correct intention, as opposed to the person who is ghayr mumayyiz or not discerning. So here we are given an age, but for this discernment, scholars, they've mentioned other things too. Some of the books, they mention like being able to discern like a cow from a buffalo, or maybe in modern terms we say something like a car from a truck. Allah knows best. Then the author goes on, number 6, pure water, or we can maybe say purifying water, acquired legally. And this of course would exclude stolen water or water taken by force. 7, the removal of anything which prevents water reaching the body, such as wax or dough or anything that resembles it. And this is a good point, and this also includes nail polish. So women, please pay attention to this. I personally, I'm sorry to say, I hate nail polish, because when I see it, I just think this person can't have wudu. I think a lot of people, either they don't know about this ruling or they don't care about the ruling, but it's not that you can't use nail polish, but it will not allow you to have al-wudu. And if anybody tells you the nail polish is like a splint or an imam or hijab, something that you wipe over, they are wrong, because there's no necessity in having it. So you're free, ladies, if you want to wear the nail polish or not, but according to Sharia, it's going to prevent you from having al-Wudhu. So the best you can do is, be in the state of tahara, put it on. Maybe you'll last 1 or 2 prayers before you have to make wudu. Then you should take it off in order to make al-wudu. And finally, al-istinja and al-istijmar, which we've taken in the last lesson. And these aren't also seen in all the books, but they do make sense and they are relevant because it's an element of tahara that you have to have and able to be able to do the lifting of the hadath. Okay, I realize we're going a little bit long here, so let's quickly try to do one more question. Number 15, how many sunnahs are there in wudu? And the plural of sunnah in Arabic is sunan. So the author says it has 18 sunnahs, and they are. And the author does mention in the footnote that he says 18 here, but there's actually 19 in his list. And then he says in the footnote, number 18 is an additional point and is not considered by most Hanbali imams. I would kind of I basically agree with what he says. In general, most people don't number them. I believe in Dalil al-Talib, he mentions 28, if I recall. But these sunnahs aren't fixed, and there's a lot of debate as opposed to the Fardh and the Wajib, how many there actually are. So, let's continue. The author says it has 18 sunnahs, and they are: 1. Facing the Qibla. He's using letters here, so I'll just read the letters. B. Using a miswak. We took the siwak in the last lesson. If you want to know more, just go back there. C. Washing the hands 3 times. However, for those who wake up from a nocturnal sleep, then doing so is wajib with intention and saying Basmalah, as has already been mentioned. And we discussed that, I think, a lot in the last lesson. D. Rinsing the mouth and nose before washing the face. So that is the sunnah. In case you don't, it's still valid. If you wash the face and then do the mouth and nose, but the sunnah is to do them first. E. To do more than the required for both the mouth and nose except for the fasting person, i.e. except for the fasting person, water should go high in the nose and completely to the back of the mouth. Yes, I agree with how he's explained it here. F. To be thorough in cleaning all the limbs. And I think he is using the word al-mubaligha here. So he also used it previously, al-mubaligha fihima لغير الصائم, meaning the mubaligha, or being excessive in them, meaning the mouth and the nose, other than the one fasting. But here mubaligha fi sa'ar al-a'da, or as he's translated here, thorough in cleaning all the limbs. I think if we refer to other books, and I think also this is what's mentioned in a nail, that it means kind of like wiping. So when you're doing that washing, you also wipe to make sure that the water reaches all places of the skin. G. Increase in water for the face, as there are wrinkles, crevices, and beard on the face. H. Combing a thick beard with wet fingers once. And on this issue, Al-Buhuti has also mentioned in Sharh al-Muntaha, or I think this is even from the Metin itself by al-Futuhi, that not only combing the thick beard, but also the anfaqa. The anfaqa is like the hair kind of between the lip and the beard, the mustache and the eyebrows, if they are also that thick, and likewise if a woman or hermaphrodite has a beard, the same ruling applies to them. Then the author goes on to say, running wet fingers between the fingers and toes. J, taking new water for the ears. That means when you wipe the head, you wipe front and then back again, then you get again a new water to wipe the ears. You don't have to, but it is sunnah. K, the right limb to precede the left for hands and feet. We already have discussed in previous lessons, it's generally preferable to begin with the right, with a few exceptions. L, to exceed the beyond the Fardh area for the 4 Fardh limbs. This means that we mentioned those limbs that are washed in the Wudhu, washed or wiped, and that one can go beyond. So, for example, the yad or the arm, you go all the way up to the elbow, including the elbow, and you can go beyond. Likewise, the ankle, you can keep going beyond. M, to wash a second and third time, and this is just as what's mentioned in al-Bukhari. I think the 3 narrations are all on the authority of Uthman radiyallahu anhu, if I remember correctly, but he has narrated the 1, 2, and 3 washings there. N, keep the intention until the end of the wudu. And O, make the intention when washing the hands. P, to pronounce the intention silently. The author has a footnote here where he says, there is a difference of opinion on this being sunnah. The research scholars have pointed out that there is no hadith text establishing it is a sunnah. There's a lot to unpack here. I think what's important to mention, number one, if we go to also look at Dalil al-Talib, they mention this point. And if we look at also Muntaha al-Iradat, it also says the same thing. I've had a quick look at a few other books, including Al-Iqna' by Al-Hajawi, and Al-Muqna' and Al-Mughni by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Qudama, and none of these books actually mention this point. So I think the fact that it's mentioned in Dalil al-Talib and Muntaha al-Iradat, we can definitely accept this as the correct position in the madhab, inshallah. And regarding to what the Shaykh Khalid is saying here, and with all due respect, I disagree. I'm not sure what he's implying. I have a sense he's implying something else, but I would say there's also no hadith that's establishing that one has to say this out loud. So if we see that there's no text saying that it's out loud, we can assume that it's something that's done quietly. And what's interesting is if we look at what al-Buhuti mentions in Sharh al-Muntaha, he quotes Shaykh Taqiyuddin min Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, where he says that the Imams are in agreement that it's not legislated to vocalize it, meaning the niyyah. So this is also, I think, quite a good evidence from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. And I do want to mention one thing, because I think that when people make these comments about the madhab and the positions in the madhab, I mean, frankly, it's very dangerous, and people, I don't even know what it means, research scholars. Who are these people? Are these the mujtahid imams? I don't think so. But if we refer to also what Ibn Qudama mentions in al-Mughni under the intention for prayer. So now this is prayer, but I think what he's saying here about the intention generally, it'll apply to the other things. So he says here, وَمَعْنَى النِّيَّةِ الْقَصْدِ وَمَحَلُّهَا الْقَلْبِ وَإِنْ لَفَظَ بِهَا نَوَاهُ كَانَ تَأْكِيدًا. So the meaning of niyya is intention, and its place is in the heart. So let's focus here. Its place is in the heart. It's not in the tongue. And if one pronounces it, it's just for emphasis. So he's using this word wa'in. It's if. So it's clear here that it's not something that's necessary and definitely not a sunnah. So please consider that, and please be confident that we can go with what is mentioned in this book in Dalil al-Talib and Muntaha al-Iradat. Q. And say the following dua while raising the gaze to the sky after wudu. And that dua is Ashhadu an la ilaha illallahu wahdahu la sharika lahu وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم اجعلني من التوابين واجعلني من عبادك المتطهرين. I bear witness that there is no one worthy of worship except Allah alone, who has no partner. I bear witness that Muhammad is his slave and messenger. O Allah, make me from the repentant and those of your slaves who are purified. Then R, to recite Surah al-Qadr. And I recall Shaykhuna Dr. Mustafa, he said that yes, this is not mentioned in most of the books, but this is mentioned in the book Al-Mustaw'ab by a Samari. And then S, to do the wudu without assistance. And if I can also go back to that previous one on the Surah al-Qadr, I don't believe that this is also mentioned by Mar'i al-Karmi in the Dalil al-Talib either. Just for clarification, I believe this is something that's in addition to what's mentioned in Dalil al-Talib. So let's end there today's lesson. I'm sorry it's gone a bit long, but I didn't want to break up the Fardh and the Wajib and the Sunnah X, but we will stop here, and inshallah the next lesson we'll talk about the description of al-Wudhu. As always, please don't forget us and all Muslims, especially the Hanabila, in your dua. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een.